So in this session, we're going to continue our discussion of what broken relationships look like and how we get caught up in using other people to fill up needs that we have instead of relating to people in their own right. So they become means to an end. So we're going to look at the character of the oldest brother, Demitri, Karamazov, and this is from the chapter, The Confession of an Ardent Heart Anecdote. If you'd like to read that part, you're more than welcome to. Demitri is very much his father's son in that he craves the admiration of those around him and feels a little bit unworthy of it. And in looking at how he became engaged to a woman named Katerina, Dostoevsky shows us another little twist in these broken relationships. And it has to do with this, how we become who we will be in relationship with others. Because not only can we live into a positive image of ourselves that we so crave from others, but we can receive a negative feedback and live into that image too. So if we're constantly being fed an image that we are unworthy or dishonorable or a scoundrel, in Dimitri's case, it's hard to find a way not to be that, because we're so dependent on what others think of us to become who we will be, that we often can end up becoming something very negative. So here's how it plays out in this story of this engagement. Demitri is a lieutenant in the military, and he's stationed in a town, a small town, where he has become the man about town. He is the guy everyone wants to be with because he's young, he's handsome, and he has come into an inheritance from his father, a piece of his inheritance, and he's spending it like water. So he's buying drinks, carousing, you know, the life of the party. So he's at the top of his world. Things are going well. The colonel of his regiment has a daughter named Katerina, and she has been away, and she's returning home, and a ball is being thrown in her honor. All of the town now is turning their admiring glances towards Katerina. And in Dimitri's way of thinking, in his logic, if you're seeking the admiration of everyone, you might as well just go to one-stop shopping. If everyone's admiring Katerina, you get her to admire you, you're cemented at the top. You're the prince now. So that's what he sets out to do at the ball. He goes up to her and asks her to dance, assuming that she will, of course, want to dance with him. And she says, "I'm not dancing with you. I've heard about you, and I don't want any part of you." So he is insulted, immediately insulted. And the thing that he wants from her, her admiration, she is withholding. So in order to make things right, he has got to figure out what can he withhold from her. You know, he's got to one-up her. Well, he knows that her father has come into some financial trouble. He needs to come up with 4,000 rubles. He needs it fast. And he's so desperate that he tried to kill himself. And Katerina stopped him just before he did. And so as she's walking away from him at the ball, Demitri grabs hold of her and says, "I know your father needs 4,000 rubles. I'm happy to give it to you. No strings attached. Just come get it at night." And Katerina, of course, now is in the position of having to win Dimitri's approval. So he has flipped the tables on her. So she does exactly what he asks her to do. She comes secretly at night knowing full well that a man of his reputation is going to have a string attached to that money, and she fully expects that he will extract his price from her with her virtue as the price. So as she's standing in front of him, he's telling all of this to Alyosha. Everyone always confesses their worst sins to Alyosha throughout the novel. So Dimitri's telling Alyosha that as she stood before him, he realized that she was the picture of nobility, willing to suffer anything for her father. And he was a scoundrel, undeniably, and he saw it in her eyes. And so he starts to think, how, am I going to live into this scoundrelness, if you will? And he figures he will act on her expectation that he will ravish her. But he says, I'm not a man without honor. Tomorrow morning I'll propose marriage, because I'm not a complete scoundrel. But in his mind, he imagines going to her with this proposal of marriage, and he knows she will reject him. She will have nothing to do with him. She will have had the money. It will have happened in secret. She won't tell anyone, and she will reject him completely. And he says, as he's thinking that through, in that moment, that he hates her. And he says, I hated her with a fearful hatred, the hate which is only a hair's breadth from love. So that the hate and the love are the same thing. They're an expression of his dependence on her, how much he needs her to admire him, to not see him as a scoundrel, but to see him as a noble person. And so Dostoevsky tells us that he goes into the drawer where their money is and just gives her the money. He bows to her and gives her the money. In other words, you win. You've got the nobility, I don't have it. Take the money and go. And what happens is that Katerina manages to give the money to her father, saves her father from his debt. She comes into an inheritance, pays him back, pays Demitri back, and writes him a letter that says that she loves him, madly in love with him. And they become engaged. Katerina, though, of course, doesn't really love Demitri. What she loves is being a god to Demitri. And she says as much to him, I want to save you. Because she knows it is she who can bestow the thing that he craves the most, the feeling of being a noble person. And she loves that role. And so the novel follows their very difficult relationship of Katerina trying to stay in that position with Demitri, even knowing in her heart that what they have together is not love, but a very severely broken and manipulative relationship. Thank you.